Good morning, high school. It is Monday, September 7th. We are about to jump into our third week of distance learning in our empty halls. Hopefully you know by now, but our school theme for the year is Minds Made New. And the idea from that comes from Romans 12:2, where it says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." So, because that's our school theme, the thought of changing your mind and having your mind renewed has been on my mind a lot recently. And I just wanted to share some of the thoughts I've been having with you all. The things I've been thinking about lately have to do a lot with why it's hard to change your mind, or in some cases, have your mind changed for you. It's not something we enjoy doing, it's something we're really hesitant to do. And I was kind of thinking, well, why is that? What makes it so hard for us to be willing to change our mind? And there's a few reasons I came up with as I thought through, for me, why it's difficult for me to change my mind. So I'm going to run down them. First, changing your mind requires you to admit that you were wrong. That if you weren't wrong, if you didn't hold a false belief or think something that wasn't correct, you wouldn't ever have to change your mind. And so the times you've changed your mind, or I've changed my mind, are because I realized I believed something false, or I was thinking about something in a wrong way. And we don't like to admit that. We've spent a long time building up our thoughts and our beliefs, the things that we think and hold dear. And so to realize that one of those things that we held so close to who we are is wrong, there's a real resistance to that. It's almost as if saying part of me is wrong. Part of who I consider myself to be isn't right, and I need to change that. And so we don't like to admit that we are wrong. The second reason it's hard is that we've spent so much time and energy building up the things that we think and believe and we feel. I've spent decades of my life acting on the things that I hold to be true and I believe. And so I'm in a rut. I've got inertia. Left to my own devices, I'm just going to stick with those things that I think and believe. Changing your mind is being forced out of that rut, being forced past that inertia into some kind of movement. Sometimes those things are easy. There are minor things we change our minds about. Clothes, habits, choice of Netflix show, food. We don't have a lot invested in those things, but still, changing your mind about them requires that you change your actions and do something differently. There are bigger things you might have to change your mind about too. How you view a certain person or a certain group of people. How do you spend your time, your money, your resources? What is valuable to give your energy and attention to? What should I do with my life? Changing your mind about questions like that might lead to much bigger changes in how you're living and how you're acting. And we don't like to do that. We don't like to admit that the things that we've built up, the things that we put time and energy and effort into creating, aren't the things we should have spent that time and energy and effort on. Left to my own devices, I think a lot of myself. I think I'm pretty smart and capable, and for the most part think and believe the right things. So I'm resistant to change my mind because it takes more humility than I have. It's hard to admit that what we've thought or believed or ways that we've acted are wrong. And so changing our mind sometimes is hard just because it's a crack to our ego. It means we have to admit that we're not as great as we think we are. We have fewer answers and we do fewer things right than we like to believe that we do. But our call this year, through our school theme, is to allow our minds to be made new. To not let any of those reasons stop us from changing our mind when we realize we're wrong. Or maybe more importantly, to not prevent God from changing our minds when he shows us that we're wrong. It's hard. It's never easy to change your mind, but it's way better than continuing to believe or think something that's not true. So I pray this year, for all of us in this community, for you, for me, that we would allow our minds to be made new as we go throughout this school year. And maybe this context of distance learning, when we're being exposed to new rhythms and ideas and practices that we don't normally take part in is just the thing that God wants to use to help make our minds new. He knows that we're resistant to change unless it's forced upon us. So maybe this change has been forced upon you or me so that God can work through it and help make our minds new. So I'm trying to do the hard thing and allow my mind to be changed when I realize that I'm in the wrong and it needs to change. I pray that you would too. I pray that you wouldn't let those reasons stop you from allowing yourself to think and feel and believe more like God wants you to. Stay safe, stay sane.